Most people go to Honolulu, Hawaii for vacation. Not this man. The Italian Gangster, Danny Sabatello, will be at that tropical paradise ready to fight MMA style on Bellator MMA 278, April 22nd. And it'll be available on Showtime YouTube, Bellator YouTube, many places you can watch this exciting action. And this is a very interesting fight for Danny. So first of all, Danny, thank you. Tell us a little bit about this fight because it's a qualifier fight for you for an even bigger prize.
Yeah, absolutely. So this fight specifically going down in Honolulu, Hawaii will be against Jornel Lugo. And it's pretty much a wild card position into this Grand Prix tournament that Bellator does. And then obviously the winner of this tournament is the Bellator champion of the world and also gets that prize money of $1 million. But you know what? This fight specifically, I guess technically you're not in the fight because this one, or in the tournament, because this one is 3 rounds. Following this fight, it will all be 5 rounds. But yeah, so now technically it's a 10-man bracket, but 2 fights are going to be wild cards, and then you go into that 8-man bracket system. So this one's going to be good. I'm going to beat the shit out of Jornel Lugo April 22nd. He doesn't really pose too much of a threat to me. And then we're just going to go from there.
And Danny, you're going to have to win 4 fights to be able to win the top prize. What is it like being in this type of format? You've wrestled in wrestling tournaments in the past and have been a very successful amateur wrestler, high school, and then for Purdue. What's this? Is this sort of give you that type of feel, even though it's MMA style?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I actually really enjoy these Grand Prix tournaments. I think we should do more of them. You know, you look at other sports, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, they all have playoffs. You know, and MMA doesn't really have a playoff. This is pretty much it. You know, and even in the other sports, they have these wild card games. So I think it's mimicking the other sports. I think it's really good. It's interesting for everybody. It's good for the fighters. And I think it's interesting for the fans. You know, in addition to that, I think it gives no room for people to make excuses, you know, because sometimes these promotions can pick and choose who they want to get a title fight. You can have these guys saying, oh, I should have got the opportunity to become the best in the world. The good thing about this is, you know what? You can be the best in the world if you're in this tournament. You take the best guys in the Bellator Bantamweight division and you have them fight. The winner moves on, the loser's out. Simple as that. There's no room for excuses if you lose. And if you win, you just keep going on. So, yeah, I love the bracket style. It's hard to just not look ahead in these fights and see who I could potentially be fighting. But, you know, a lot of times you get in trouble when you're looking ahead and past certain opponents and everything like that. So right now I'm just trying to keep focused on Jornel Lugo. I need to keep it level-headed and just focused on what he has to offer me. You know, obviously I think I'm so much better than him. I would think it would take a miracle for him to beat me. But at the end of the day, miracles happen and anything can happen. So I do got to just focus on Jornel Lugo for now.
Look at that. Look at that. Danny must be looking at my notes. That was going to be my follow-up. He already answered the follow-up. He doesn't even need me to ask the questions. That's the Italian Gangster style. Yes, Danny.
Love it. Yeah, it's good. So, I mean, honestly, that is a problem, though, that these fighters are going to have. And I do kind of understand that because it is hard to look at a bracket and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to beat this guy. So who am I going to fight next? So I don't blame people for doing it. You know, it's really hard not to. I find myself sometimes thinking about Higo, who is who I will have if I win this fight. But you know what? I just got to stay focused on Lugo and whatever it takes to get to that next fight, you know, survive in advance. You know, I have some people asking me, are you going to fight this fight a little bit more conservative and do certain things where you can't and won't get injured? Because maybe if you win the fight but get injured, you'll have to pull out of the tournament. And the answer is no, not at all. I got to fight my fight. All I got to focus on is winning, do whatever it takes at all costs to win this fight, and then we'll go from there.
And this fighter, this man is a winner, and he's also training at a winning training center at American Top Team in South Florida. So many great fighters and trainers. We've talked in the past. Tell us about some of those trainers and who particularly is getting you ready for this upcoming fight.
Yeah, you know, the good thing about American Top Team is I have absolutely killers in the gym with me. We're really stacked at bantamweight specifically as well. And I'm going a lot with Tony Gravely, who's a big UFC guy, and also Pedro Munoz, who's also another stud in the UFC. Those are two guys that not only are great training partners, but just really good people in general. I spent a lot of time with them. And the good thing is they're very versatile. They can mimic the style of Jornel Lugo. I'm facing Jornel, and he's kind of a southpaw, but likes to switch stances. So, someday I'll say, hey, go southpaw and kind of mimic Lugo, and they'll do that. So they've been really good. And on top of that, having the best training partners, I have the best coaches in the world. Mike Brown is my head coach, and he's just so good. All I got to do is just listen to him, and the rest will take care of itself.
And that's Bellator 278, April 22nd. It's going to be another great event. Bellator has really come on, and we've seen several American top team fighters doing very well at Bellator shows, Bellator cards. Danny, do you find yourself watching the Bellator events and also seeing some of the fighters like Cody and Roman and Johnny, some of the ones that have been on the cards, and even rooting for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm close with all those guys. American Top Team as a whole is a pretty close, tight-knit gym, but specifically us guys in Bellator, Cody Law, Dalton Rosta, Johnny Eblin, Roman Feraldo, Sabah Hamasi, we're all very close guys. So we're, of course, going to watch and cheer for each other. The loyalty at American Top Team is very thick. I've known Johnny for a while now. He wrestled at Missouri when I was at Purdue, so I knew him when we were in college. But yeah, I'm always watching the Bellator fights, specifically my guys at American Top Team. And, I'm just feeding off their energy just because, they've been doing really good. This is the ATT takeover of Bellator. You look at any Bellator card and you're going to have American Top Team guy on it. And more than likely, they're going to be dominating.
Hey, speaking of Johnny, and also you mentioned Missouri, and you're at Purdue for the amateur wrestling, the collegiate wrestling. I'm curious, Danny, to find yourself crossing paths with others, whether training or fighting in the MMA world that you went against in college and or high school.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the way things play out. And the good thing is wrestling is such a big background for fighting. I think the best background to have in fighting is wrestling. So you're obviously going to have fighters that have that wrestling background, people that you're familiar with, people that you've competed against. And I think at the end of the day, I'm the best fighter in the world. I think I was good at wrestling because I'm great at fighting. So fighting's just been my life. It really has been my entire life, even when I was wrestling. When I had my wrestling career, I tried to focus specifically on wrestling, but I was always just super pumped about the transition I was going to have into MMA. And right now I'm here. And the good thing is right now it's a very exciting time because now I can finally prove to people in the world that I'm the best bantamweight on the planet.
And Danny, I'm curious because MMA is so much of a lot of things, and wrestling is a big part of that. How have you fared in the Mako dungeon at American Top Team?
Yeah, really good. Me and Mako are very close. He was probably my first coach at American Top Team. He's just a legendary wrestler, and now he's becoming a legendary coach. He's my wrestling coach. I work with him maybe 2-3 times a week. He's just an absolute stud. And every week I'm learning from him. He's got such a large arsenal of moves and things that, a lot of things that worked in strictly wrestling, but now he's got a lot of techniques and skills that are wrestling based, but are a little bit more geared towards MMA just because things are a little bit different. You can hit each other now, no wrestling shoes, little things like that. So it's always good going with him. And also I love having him in my corner because he's also crazy. I like surrounding myself people that are just like me, and he's a very similar guy. So we kind of feed off each other. He's always going to be in my corner, and I love that he has my back.
Well, Danny, I got to tell you, I went to American Top Team and I went to the back area over there and I saw that dungeon and I was afraid to walk in there. I didn't know. For you, it's just no problem. You go in there and just work it out, sweat it out.
Yeah, it's a scary place for people that haven't been. I'll tell you what, if you don't have that wrestling background or you can't hold your own, that's going to be a place that you're not going to forget. A lot of people sweat, bleed, cry there. That's a place that, maybe cameras shouldn't be allowed just because there's a lot going on. But yeah, that's a place that turned boys into men, and it's a really good place at American Top Team.
Well, hey, Danny, I'll tell you what, I went there one time because he's got 2 sons, high school kids, middle school kids, are both excellent wrestlers. I don't know if you got to see them wrestle at all, even train there. or even get to work out with them a little bit?
Yeah, Peter and Michael, they're both absolutely studs. They're not very old yet, but I think they're just still coming on the scene. I think one of them is in 8th grade. But yeah, they're both going to be very good. When you got a father like Steve Mako, that's always going to be pushing you to be the best of your ability. Not only is he a good wrestling coach, but he's a good father. He's a guy, I've been to his house. We've spent time together. Those guys are going to be champions in wrestling and champion at life. That's a guy that you want to get advice from, and that's a guy that you want to mimic yourself of. So I think really highly of Steve Mako. He's going to be my wrestling coach probably for the rest of my career. And it's very exciting going forward.
Hey, another exciting thing is watching you fight, and your record is 11-1. I believe you've won your last 5 fights.
Correct.
And you were supposed to have another fight, and then tell me, was it COVID issues or just something happened? You weren't able to fight. So it's been a while since you last fought. Mindset, mentally, how do you prepare for something like that? Because it has been a little while.
Yeah, it's been too long if you ask me. I had that win over Brett Johns about maybe 11-ish months ago. And then a few months after that, I was supposed to fight Johnny Campbell in Connecticut. And it was unfortunate because either a day before or 2 days before, I was already in Connecticut and they tested me for corona. I tested positive, so they had to axe that fight. I was calling for that fight for the next maybe 3 months, and then eventually it just wasn't going to happen, so I had to move on. A lot of these guys are straight pussies in this game. You always hear that guys will fight anybody, but the fact of the matter is they won't. I've been calling out pretty much everybody under the sun. Nobody has been answering the call. Even a couple months ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, there was a card in St. Louis. I was supposed to fight a guy by the name of Richie Palencia. He verbally agreed, and then when Bellator sent the contract, he, of course, backed out like a bitch. So it's just been unfortunate because a lot of guys won't fight me. A lot of guys in this division are soft. But now that we're in the Grand Prix tournament, people are forced to fight me. So going forward, it's going to be a whole different animal. Now they're going to have to fight me. I had a really good performance against Brett Johns 11 months ago. And since 11 months, I've been in the gym every single day, twice a day, training at the best gym in the world, American Top Team. So I'm going to be even better than that. And that's just a scary fucking thought, and I'm going to prove it April 22nd when I come after Jornel Lugo's head.
He's going all the way from South Florida to Honolulu, Hawaii to go kick ass.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just looked at the flights the other day, and I think it's 6 hours to LA and then another 6 hours to Hawaii. But what I love about that is, I'm going to be suffering a little bit on the plane, but I love it because that means my opponent's going to be suffering too. This Jornel character is also from South Florida. So you know what? I'll always suffer as long as they are. My mental capacity, I got a mind that's just cement, So I do like that I am going to be suffering a little bit on a flight because that only means that he's going to be suffering. And I'll handle suffering a lot better than he will.
Because, Danny, you tell me, because you know better than I would. When you were wrestling in high school and on the circuit and then in college, there wasn't as much talk or banter going on between the fighters. But when you get up to MMA, then you start seeing a little more of the talk. Then you start seeing a little more fighters dodging this one, dodging that one. Were you prepared for that before getting into it? Did you know that going in, or is it something you just found out when you start getting into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always been this way. I've always been a little bit of a trash talker. That just is my personality. It doesn't matter if I'm shooting hoops with my brother or fighting somebody in a cage. I'm always going to be talking trash. There's not really too much media in wrestling, so you don't really see too many interviews where guys are talking trash. But I always was the same way. I was always talking trash whenever I got the opportunity to. If I was getting an interview, I was always talking trash. And even around the tournament, if I did see my upcoming opponent, I would try to seek him out and just play some mental warfare and nudge him before. That's just my personality. I really do believe in mental warfare. I think a lot of fights are won before the fight. I think even in this fight specifically, I already got this bitch because he's talking some trash right now, and that's unfamiliar territory to him. This is a guy I've watched some of his interviews, and he doesn't really talk too much trash. With this fight specifically, he sees me talking trash, so he's been talking some trash, and I already know I got him because this is foreign territory to me and to him, and that's home to me. I think when we step in the cage, the lights are going to be a little bit brighter, and he's going to feel a little bit more pressure now that he's been talking some smack. And for me, this is nothing new. that cage after that talking smack is home to me. So he's going to be in my home, and I'm going to make him pay. I think I already got him.
Sabatello's ready to go already. If that fight was leaving in 15 minutes, he'd already be out there ready to fight this guy, fight them all. That's what I like about Sabatello. Danny,
yeah, absolutely.
You're from Chicago originally, correct?
Yep.
Chicago, great sports town. Just a lot of great action there. And I'm curious, I think if I remember correctly, you were an Anthony Rizzo fan and a Chicago Cubs fan growing up.
Huge Anthony Rizzo fan. It still fucking sucks that he's playing for the Yankees, but it is what it is. I'll still always be a Cubs fan. I just wish someday we can get him back.
You haven't met him yet. I'm just curious. Do you think someday? This is so interesting because he went to high school right up the road in Parkland, not far from American Top Team at Douglas High School. I think his parents may still live out there too, by the way. So I just didn't know that you haven't met him or anything yet.
Nope, haven't met him, but I know someday I will. The opportunity obviously has to align. He's got to be here from New York, and I got to not have practice or anything like that. But I do really want to meet the guy. Not only is he a great ball player, but I think he's just a great, hilarious person. He was my favorite Cub. I still am just so pissed that he was traded. But I like all those Cubs guys. But, Anthony Rizzo specifically, being from down here, it just makes a little bit more of a connection with him. And yeah, I hope someday I do meet him.
I think every year in the off season, he has a walk to raise funds for leukemia because he had an illness and he gave back. So I just got to remember when that is coming up to message American Top Team or Bellator to get in touch with you. So at least you'll know when it is, because he's there at every event. He hosts it. He not only puts his name on it, but he's actually there for the walk and all too. So we have to try to get that hooked up.
Definitely going. Whenever that is, I'll be there.
Well, you see, I know this is going to bring back not good memories for maybe though. I don't know. This was the Cubs Marlins championship series, South Florida. In the back, I've got Bears Colts. I don't know if you could see that and all there, but I figured I'd do this for you, Danny. There we go.
That is perfect. It's unfortunate because the Bears did lose that game against the Colts. And then obviously the Cubs didn't win it all that year. But you know what? They ended up winning and getting that 108-year drought past them. So that's all. I'll take it. You know what?
Danny, were you up there? I didn't know. Were you in school at the time? What was going on when all that was happening?
No, I just graduated. That whole series, that was insane. The whole city of Chicago was absolutely on fire. That's a city where we really care about our teams a lot. So just in general, the city was going to be on fire. But I'll never forget when they won that game, and it was just insane. The whole city was going nuts. Wrigleyville specifically. Wrigleyville is the town that Wrigley Field is in. And all the bars were packed to capacity. I'll never forget, the streets were just absolutely flooded. It was just a madhouse for 2 weeks after that championship game. It was something I'll never forget.
Now, if people are going to Chicago and they're going to get deep dish pizza, where are they going, Sabatello?
Malnati's. Malnati's is the best deep dish. It's the only thing that they don't really have down here is deep dish pizza. Every time I go back up to Chicago, it's the first meal I have. My dad and my mom hate it because they want me to have their home cooking or whatever, but I got to have that deep dish pizza.
Danny, I'm going to tell you something. You got to remember a place. It's called Flicker Light. Flicker Light. It's in Hollywood, not too far from American Top Team. It's near the beach area. It's a Chicago restaurant sports bar, and they make some good pizza there. I want you to try that sometime. It's not going to be the same as Chicago, but that's
they do deep dish, though. Do they do deep dish?
They do deep dish too. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So maybe we'll see what happens. You go down there and check it out, but it's called Flicker Light. So
after this fight, yep, absolutely. I'm cutting weight right now, so of course I can't have that deliciousness. But after the fight, when I beat the shit out of Jornel Lugo and I'm celebrating, I'll get me some deep dish from Flicker Lights.
See, I shouldn't be talking any food, so I'm sorry about that, Danny. No more food talk here.
You're good.
There's a couple more questions.
Good.
We'll get you out of here and all. It's curious to me too, because the Italian Gangster, your nickname, and then Chicago. And I think of like the mob in Chicago. I think of Al Capone, and I think of the movie The Untouchables. Is that sort of where that comes from, or does it come from somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously the outfit in Chicago is just very prevalent in history. But I'm a very much Italian person. My dad is all Italian. My mom's Italian as well. Grandparents are coming from Palermo, Sicily. But you know what? I grew up watching the Rocky movies, and he was called the Italian Stallion. And that was kind of my nickname growing up a little bit. And when it came time to have a nickname, I didn't really want Italian Stallion just because it's already been done. That's Rocky Balboa. That's his shtick and everything, and plus I'm better than Rocky. I'd beat the shit out of him. So I wanted my own thing. And one of my teammates said, "How about the Italian Gangster?" And I absolutely loved it, and I ran with it. But you know what? It's kind of just who I am. It's kind of mimicking my personality. I'm very Italian, and the way I conduct myself is just kind of like that. So it's really good. It reflects who I am, and I absolutely love it.
Hey, Danny, can you tell us yet who you'll be taking then out to Honolulu, Hawaii for Bellator 278 on April 22nd? Do you know who's going with you yet?
Yeah, I'll have my Purdue wrestling teammate, Aaron Acid. He's one of my best friends. He's going to be out there with me. He's just more of a familiar face. He also specializes in dieting, so he's going to help me with my weight cut. He's also around the same height as Jornel Lugo, so we can mimic that style. But he's just a guy that I'm going to have fun with out there. He's going to keep it light, just a familiar face. At that point, when you're a week away from the fight, there's not really too much that's going to win or lose you the fight. The work has already been done. It's been a good training camp. You just kind of need familiar faces and to just get comfortable. And then also it'll be my head coach, Mike Brown. He's going to always be with me. He'll always be traveling with me. He'll always be in my corner. So it's going to be them two with me in Hawaii.
Well, we're going to wrap this up now. And I want to thank Danny Sabatello, the Italian Gangster of American Top Team and Bellator MMA, for taking the time. Very interested to see what happens, see Danny get this victory, and then move on and get into this Grand Prix tournament with $1 million prize. It's a very cool event that Bellator does with some of these weight classes, and yours, the Bantamweight. So I've got to go here because I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and I cover pro wrestling and interview pro wrestlers. And I know that Dan Lambert, one of the leaders of American Top Team, is so passionate about it. He's even on TV now on All Elite Wrestling, which is on TNT and TBS on Friday and Wednesday nights. Tonight, actually, we're on Wednesday tonight and tonight. And we've seen him bring Junior Dos Santos. We've seen him bring Jorge Masvidal, Kayla Harrison, Dalton Rasta, Austin Vanderford, Paige Van Zandt, Arlovsky. When are we going to see Dan Lambert give the call to the Italian Gangster, Danny Sabatello?
Yeah, that might be sooner than later. The fact of the matter is I'm just so focused in tunnel vision on this Grand Prix tournament. I don't want to lose any sights or get a little bit unfocused, because that's when you lose. This is a game of inches, and you got to be totally focused on your craft. I am totally focused on Jornel Lugo, April 22nd. But you know what? That is going to be a little bit of fun. Dan is very into it. He's always been very into it. And I always watch just because I think he's also hilarious at it. But you know what? You never know what the future is going to hold. Right now, my sights are on fighting. I love actually fighting. I'm going to carry this on. That's going to be my career. And then who knows what the future holds. I am entertained by it. It is very fun and exciting. It's very funny. But yeah, for now, it's just win the Grand Prix tournament, and then we're going to go from there.
And I'll tell you what, with your character persona, with your personality, I think that resonates itself to pro wrestling as well. So that's something, if ever down the road, that's something that may be able to turn into something as well. Like now Paige Van Zandt is taking a try with pro wrestling and now signed with AEW. So it's always a possibility down the road. King Mo is another one that's been involved in pro wrestling for a while now.
Yep, absolutely. I think that transition wouldn't be too difficult. I know it's a new field, so of course can't be arrogant. There's got to be a lot to learn, but I think myself having a bit of a personality, maybe it comes a little bit easier to me. But right now I'm just focused on my career. I got to accomplish what I want to in MMA first before I think about anything else. So right now my goal is just to be the best bantamweight on the planet Earth. And then everything else after that will come. We'll worry about that. We'll focus on that. We'll think about that when that comes. But right now, it's just to win this Grand Prix tournament.
That's Danny Sabatello of American Top Team, going to be at Bellator 278. It's been long overdue, my friend. I want to thank you for taking the time. Go out there, go do your thing, go kick some ass, get in that tournament, win that tournament, prove it, and come away with that nice $1 million check.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's always fun talking to you.